Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. You may have heard boxing coach guilty of conspiracy to supply cocaine. The world champion boxing trainer and manager has been found guilty of conspiracy to supply cocaine, the BBC can reveal. Andrew Bullcroft, better known in the boxing world as Stefy Bull, has been remanded in custody since the 28th of February, when he was convicted by a jury at Sheffield Crown Court. The 48-year-old from Doncaster will be sentenced along with his co-defendant, Benjamin Williams, at the same court on the 26th of August. Bullcroft's trial heard how he used the Encrocrat encrypted phone network to buy significant amounts of cocaine under the pseudonym Yummy Cub. That must be why Terry Harper is under new management and why we haven't seen or heard much from Stefy Bull in recent weeks. A former professional boxer turned trainer, manager, and promoter, Bull's stable has included champions at British, European, and world level. He is perhaps best known for guiding the career of three-weight world champion Terry Harper, as well as several other Doncaster-based fighters who have competed at international level. They include Jamie McDonnell, Maxie Hughes, Jason Cunningham. Bullcroft of Cranemore Close in Harlington denied the charge against him, but a jury delivered a unanimously guilty verdict after a 4-day trial. I would guess that Stefy has fallen on hard times, that boxing isn't making him the money that he's used to or the money that he would like to make, so he resorted to a life of crime. In court documents seen by the BBC, the prosecutor, Sam Panaya, told jurors police found messages between the defendant and Christopher and Jonathan McAllister, who were jailed in 2022 for importing Class A drugs, after authorities infiltrated EncroChat servers in 2019. The messages were exchanged between March and May of 2020 and revealed Bullcroft to be part of a conspiracy to supply cocaine, he said. There are conversations where Yummy Cub speaks to the McAllisters or an associate of them and is inquiring about buying kilos of cocaine at around 38,000 pounds, Mr. Panaya told the court. Damn, Stefy. Naturally, the police wanted to work out who Yummy Cub was because clearly they were involved in buying significant amounts of drugs directly from importers. Bullcroft, who once shared the ring with Amir Khan, was also referred to as the Boxer by the McAllisters, the court heard. Damn, Stefy. McAllisters kinda gave it away that a Doncaster-based boxer, current or former, was interested in buying large sums of cocaine, which would have narrowed the field of options for the investigating police officers. He asked one of them to meet him at the quote-unquote gym, which shared the same postcode as his former boxing gym in Denaby, Maine, as well as my house, a location which matched his then-home address. He then replied, "Thank you," to a happy birthday message on May 10th, 2020, the date of his birthday, which Mr. Panaya said made it crystal clear he was Yummy Cub. Not much of a whodunit when you think about how much the McAllisters gave away, that a Doncaster-based boxer who has a birthday on May 10th was the one interested in buying large amounts of cocaine. A trip to Box Rec would have been enough to solve this whodunit. The court heard Bull Croft deny he was Yummy Cub and told police he did not own an encrypted device. He said boxers he trained would sometimes stay at his house and it must have been one of them who was Yummy Cub, but did not name anyone he suspected it may have been. There is no suggestion of wrongdoing from any of the fighters associated with Bull. Williams, 43 of Church Street in Mexborough, pleaded guilty in February to conspiracy to supply cocaine, possessing cocaine with intent to supply, possessing cannabis with intent to supply, and possessing criminal property. He has been released on conditional bail ahead of sentencing. The court heard how he and Bullcroft had been good friends for many years and had agreed to get involved together on the sale of cocaine. Mr. Panaya said police found a lot of cocaine at Williams' house as well as his fingerprints on money held by the McAllisters. Williams had used the pseudonym Oiled Rhino on EncroChat, the court was told. According to the Sentencing Council for England and Wales, the sentencing range for conspiracy to supply a Class A drug ranges from a high-level community order to 16 years of imprisonment. A spokesperson for the British Boxing Board of Control Central Area Council said Bullcroft's licenses as a trainer, manager, and promoter would be reviewed following his sentencing. You know what's silly? What is? If you're dealing with a guy that has anything to do with boxing, you don't mention that in correspondence. If anything, call him the mailman, the milkman, the Amazon delivery driver. You call him something other than what he is to throw John Law off. You don't call the boxer the boxer.
Jesus Christ!
Text correspondence giving a guy's date of birth away. What are these, rank amateurs or something? Is this amateur hour? So we won't be seeing Stefy for a while, and as stated, Terry Harper is now under new management, though I don't imagine she's taking any of this well. To some extent, it's gotta bother her because Stefy Bull is the one who made the initial investment in her career before Matchroom even came into it. Steffi's the one that got her start. He rolled the dice with Terry Harper, he took a gamble, and it actually paid off. And I myself have corresponded with Stefy Bull on several occasions. He seems like a nice guy. He just wants to sell some booger sugar, and what's wrong with that?
People like to party.
It's unfortunate. I just wish Stefy all the best, and however this shakes out, however it breaks down. Men's super lightweight news. Richardson Hitchins calls out Devin Haney after ruthlessly halting George Cambodia. Richardson Hitchins produced arguably a career-best performance, far more assertive than many of his previous displays, to secure a punishing 8th-round stoppage win over former champion George Kambosos. The IBF World Super Lightweight champion retained his title and extended his unblemished record at the Madison Square Garden Theater this past Saturday. Moments after orchestrating the one-sided beatdown, the Brooklyn-born technician then called out Devin Haney, while at the same time revealing that he is now a promotional free agent, which we already discussed in a previous video. You're only really as free as what your options are, that you're only as free as your options allow you to be, and there is a difference between being free and being set adrift. Devin Haney, F you, let's fight. Hitchins said in his post-fight interview, I want Devin Haney next. F Devin Haney and Bill Haney, pussies. Teofimo Lopez was ringside too, and Richardson Hitchins expressed an interest in facing him as well, in passing, where Teofimo seemed somewhat non-committal to that proposal, which we also talked about in a previous video, but none of those stories are the ones that have my attention, where Hitchins Richins is interested in facing either Devin Haney or Teofimo Lopez. Another champion at the weight, Gary Antuanne-Russle, is interested in facing him. Gary took to his social media and said, how can a guy lose to me 4 times in the amateurs? We both have belts in the same division, and yet you don't even want to fight me. Boxing is getting soft for real. I'll fight anyone as long as it makes sense, money or legacy. Gary is over there on the PBC side of things, but I don't see the PBC using him for very much ever since he became WBA champion in the Rayo Valenzuela fight that I picked him to win. I said that he would.
And he did.
He himself has a mandatory challenger in the queue in Japan Zone, Andy Hirioka. And it is my understanding that that fight has already been ordered. It is my understanding that Andy Hirioka's promoter has already made a play to stage that fight, and it is also my understanding that the PBC have also made a play to stage that fight. But I'd wager that with Gary Antuanne-Russle all of a sudden becoming so aggressive about a Richardson-Hitchins fight, I'd wager he doesn't really want to have to fight Andy Hirioka. For that, he would rather fight a champion.
I'm not against it.
I'm just highlighting that I don't recall Gary ever being this vocal or this aggressive about unifying titles with one of the other champions at the weight. Being honest, this is the first time I've seen him pipe up about that, but I am not against it. I am for unification matches whenever they can happen.
Who wins the fight?
If it's Gary and Richardson-Hitchins, I would tend to lean towards Gary, because Gary is a big, strong 140-pounder and a rough and tumble fighter, a physical fighter. He is not here for a boxing match. He's here to beat you up.
He would try to mow Richardson-Hitchins down. Richardson-Hitchins, who struggled with the pressure and volume of a pint-sized Gustavo Lemos. So just imagine a bigger, stronger guy fighting that same fight against Hitchins.
I'm really not big on Gary's boxing. He's very much a flawed and limited fighter, but his physicality might be what wins him the fight. His spite, his aggressiveness, and his size.
He's strong.
Gary has been beaten by a finesse fighter before. He has been beaten by a boxer before. He was beaten by Alberto Puello.
So I look at this as a 50-50 fight. A fight between Gary and Richardson is a 50-50 fight, but I do tend to lean in the direction of Gary. I think he would try to mow Richardson-Hitchins down, and I think Richardson would struggle to keep him off.
You think the PBC would let Gary cross over for this fight?
Well, I mean, they're letting David Morrell fight on one of Turkey LL Sheik's shows. So that's the second time he's done that?
Yeah, the PBC have been a lot more open-minded to renting out their fighters ever since they lost all of those fight dates. Fight dates they were getting on Fox, and fight dates they were getting on Showtime, fight dates they're not getting on Amazon. They're renting out their fighters to other promotional outfits a lot more often than they used to, so I think they would let Gary cross over if Matchroom wanted him to cross over, but somehow I don't get the sense that that is the fight Matchroom is working on. I get the sense that they may be working on the Haney versus Hitchins fight because yesterday Eddie Hearn had a meeting with Bill Haney.
Now, who did Richardson-Hitchins call out after the fight? Devin Haney.
I think if he has to choose, he would choose to fight Devin before he fights Gary. And those 4 victories that Gary has over him in the amateurs, that might also have something to do with that. Gary is a capable fighter, but in the 140-pound division, in spite of being a champion, he's really not a blip on the radar. You could argue that Gary is the least talked about champion at that weight. There are more people talking about Teofimo, more people talking about Richardson-Hitchins than there are people talking about Gary.
Now, if it were up to me and I had to choose what fight I want to see, I would rather see Gary fight Richardson-Hitchins than Devin fight Richardson-Hitchins. Devin and him is 2 pure boxers versus each other, none of which have all that much power, whereas Gary, the fight with Gary is the classic matchup of the boxer versus the puncher. Richardson-Hitchins is the boxer, and Gary is the puncher, and I could go for that.
If it were up to me, that would be the fight that gets made, but it's really not up to me. It's up to Richardson-Hitchins. It takes 2 to tango. And while Gary might want to tango with him, I'm not sure that Richardson-Hitchins will oblige him.
That Richardson-Hitchins wants to tango with Gary.
Men's heavyweight news. Frank Warren eyes Joseph Parker versus Derek Chisora trilogy bout. We know that Derek is in the market for a swan song opponent for what will be his swan song in the sport of boxing. Promoter Frank Warren is keen on making Derek Chisora's 50th professional fight against one of his former opponents. Chisora, 36-13, with 23 knockouts completed his 49th bout back in February with a 12-round points win against Otto Wallin in Manchester. The 41-year-old's victory in the IBF title eliminator also earned him the mandatory position for a shot at the title currently held by Daniel Dubois. The veteran is now in a queue of mandatory challengers featuring Agit Kabayel via the WBC, Joseph Parker via the WBO. Parker currently holds 2 wins over Chisora, and Warren is looking at the possibility of a third fight between them.
I did not think Joseph Parker won their initial meeting. I didn't think Joseph won the first fight, but he definitely won the second.
I remember in their first fight thinking that Derek Chisora is winning this on activity alone. Joseph Parker is being outworked, he's being overwhelmed, and in spite of that, the judges scored it for Joseph on British soil.
Wow.
If we can make it, we will try, Warren told Boxing News, but obviously, it's all up to Derek. He's the IBF's mandatory challenger, and that's where he's at. It's got to be his choice, but Chisora against Parker is a bloody good fight. Chisora is riding high on a 3-fight winning streak, but Parker is currently double that. The New Zealander blew away late-notice opponent Martin Bakole in 2 rounds back in February to reach half a dozen victories without defeat. Parker, 36-3, with 24 knockouts, had been originally scheduled to challenge Daniel Dubois for the IBF title, but illness sidelined the Brit during fight week and ruled him out. Parker's career has gone from strength to strength since he teamed up with trainer Andy Ree. Bakole, Zile Zhang, and Deontay Wilder are the 3 biggest scalps the former WBO champion has taken during this time working with the Irishman. The 33-year-old hopes to fight again this summer while he waits on a world title shot against the winner of the July 19th undisputed clash between Usyk and Dubois at Wembley. So, as you can imagine, being so close to fighting for undisputed, Joseph will now measure his approach. He needs to stay busy against a stay busy kind of guy. That guy could be Derek.
He's already got 2 recorded wins over him, so I think that Joseph would be receptive to that fight in the interim. But with Derek, this fight is intended to be Derek's swan song, and Derek being the shrewd businessman that he has been, I think he wants to make as much money as possible in his big send-off, and I don't know that Joseph provides that.
If they made it, I would watch it. But I also understand that Derek is the IBF's mandatory challenger, and that in and of itself is worth something. It's not just the marquee value that Derek brings to the table via his cult following. It's also that in fighting him and beating him, you enter the queue for a shot at the winner of Usyk versus Dubois.
My honest opinion, I'm not too keen on Parker versus Chisora, but Wardley versus Chisora.
I could go for that. I understand that Flavio just fought, and it was a war, it was a fight that for the most part he was losing, and he got hit a lot. But if I had to choose Derek's next opponent, I would sooner go with Flavio because it's more intriguing than Joseph. With Joseph, we've seen it 2 times already. We don't really need a third.
Or Frazier Clark. Frazier Clark versus Derek Chisora. I could go for that too.
Somebody new, somebody different, something interesting with some intrigue.
Derek doesn't have all the time in the world at 41 years old to make a decision. I get the sense that this could be his final year in the sport of boxing. This could be his final fight.
But at the same time, he doesn't have the luxury of it to be indecisive. He's got to make a decision.
And make it soon.